a 28-year-old bank teller opens a fake credit card for a customer who walked out 20 minutes ago. She types in a random PIN, 00. The system asks for an email. She uses a disposable address, noname@wellsfargo.com. No alert reaches the customer. No one knows. By the time this teller clocks out, she's opened 4 unauthorized accounts. Multiply that across 5,300 employees over 5 years. This is how Wells Fargo created an entire fake city, 3.5 million phantom accounts. The number is staggering enough to be abstract. Put it in perspective. That's the population of Berlin, made entirely of fraud. Wells Fargo wasn't some back alley operation. It was America's most trusted bank. In 2013, it had $1.7 trillion in assets and occupied corner offices in every American city. Its executives sat on charity boards and donated to universities. The bank's competitive advantage was cross-selling, convincing existing customers to open more accounts. This wasn't fraud, it was standard banking strategy. Except Wells Fargo weaponized it. The company set an impossible quota, 8 products per household. 8 is great, management called it. The industry average was 3. The gap between 3 and 8 wasn't a sales target. It was a chasm designed to break people. On December 21, 2013, Los Angeles Times reporter E. Scott Record published Wells Fargo's pressure cooker sales culture. The story was damning. Employees described panic attacks and forced overtime. One employee's daughter had to be hospitalized for stress-induced seizures. Another teller vomited at her desk. Ricard names and quoted internal emails. He described branches where managers stood at the exit like border guards, stopping employees from leaving if their daily numbers were too low. They called it running the gauntlet. The article explained what everyone in the bank already knew. The quotas were impossible without fraud. Wells Fargo's response was to blame the workers. The bank's spokesperson released a statement. "We're disappointed by a few individuals who didn't live up to our standards." A few individuals across thousands of branches. Impossible, yes, but they said it anyway. The machine didn't slow down, it accelerated. Instead of pausing to investigate, executives doubled down. Instead of lowering quotas, they pushed harder. The point of no return had passed. Inside a Wells Fargo branch in any American city during 2013 to 2016, the same ritual happened every morning. The branch manager stood next to a whiteboard, employee names listed vertically. Next to each name, red tally marks. 0 marks meant you were drowning. Run the gauntlet started at 5 p.m. Employees lined up to leave. Managers stood between them and the door. If your daily number was low, they pulled you aside. Everyone watched. Everyone heard. "You didn't hit your 8 today, did you?" The employee's face burned. The manager didn't fire them, not yet. But the message was clear. Do better or you're gone. This pressure had a mathematical property. It compounded. A banker named Jason realized the trap in his first month. His manager wanted 8 accounts per customer. 8. When Jason asked a customer if they needed another account, the customer said no. Jason explained the benefits. No. Jason created the account anyway. The customer's debit card arrived in the mail. When she called to complain, the bank blamed a system error. Jason felt like a criminal because he was committing one. But Jason had a daughter with a respiratory condition. Her medication cost $600 a month. His health insurance came from Wells Fargo. If he was fired, he couldn't afford her prescriptions. So Jason kept opening fake accounts. By the end of the year, he'd opened 340. He was both perpetrator and hostage, trapped by the one thing that could keep his daughter alive. Here's what proved this wasn't misunderstanding, it was design. When a banker opened a fake account, the bank system required a customer PIN for security. A real PIN is unpredictable. 7482, 3619, 19,C105. But in thousands of cases, the system logged the same pins, 000 or 1234. Sequential numbers. No customer in human history accidentally chooses 000 PIN. This wasn't random. This was systematic. Someone, not a computer glitch, not a customer mistake, was deliberately entering dummy codes. Someone was bypassing security on purpose. Then came the email addresses. When a fake account was opened, the bank needed a contact email. The legitimate ones came from actual customers: john.smith@gmail.com, larora.martinez@yahoo.com. But thousands of accounts had emails like noname@wellsfargo.com or temp123@wellsfargo.com or justx@wellsfargo.com. A customer would never receive a confirmation email at noname@wellsfargo.com. A customer would never receive a confirmation email at noname@wellsfargo.com. The point was anonymity. The point was that the customer would never know the account existed. This was a design, not a mistake, not a few rogue employees. The employees aren't rich. They're not executives. They're tellers making $25,000 a year, working 45-hour weeks, eating lunch alone in their cars so managers can't see them struggle. They're perpetrators of fraud and victims of coercion simultaneously. And they crack. In branches across the country, bank tellers started hiding in bathroom stalls. This became so common that it had a language. "I need a bathroom break" meant something different than it said. It meant, "I need to cry without my manager seeing." One teller lost all her hair. Not some of it. All of it. Alopecia triggered by sustained terror. She wore a wig to work because her manager couldn't handle the visual reminder that the quotas were destroying people. Another teller told a journalist, "I was stealing from people every single day. I knew it was wrong. I was terrified. My hands would shake when I opened a fake account, but I was more terrified of losing my job." He made $26,000 a year. The mortgage on his apartment required that job. His daughter needed that health insurance. The system wasn't asking him to work harder. It was asking him to become a criminal to stay alive. Wells Fargo had an internal ethics line. Employees could call anonymously and report fraud without fear. Except fear was exactly what happened. A teller named Samantha worked in a Denver branch. She watched her colleagues open fake accounts. She called the ethics line and reported her manager by name. She provided account numbers, dates, everything. HR investigated. They didn't find her manager guilty, but they did find something in Samantha's file. She'd been 3 minutes late to work 4 times in the past year. 2 weeks later, she was fired for chronic tardiness. The bank denied any connection. HR said these were separate performance issues, but Samantha knew. Everyone knew. The ethics line wasn't a safety valve. It was a trapdoor. Within 5 years, documented whistleblowers who reported the fraud were terminated at rates far exceeding normal workforce turnover. The bank had weaponized the very mechanism designed to protect employees. Call in fraud, and your file was suddenly under microscope. Your lateness was now chronic. Your one sick day became attendance pattern. Within weeks, you were gone. Wells Fargo didn't randomly select victims. Internal analysis showed that the bank systematically targeted college students with no credit history and no reason to suspect fraud in their own name. Recent immigrants with limited English, less likely to read statements, less likely to navigate a complaint process. Elderly customers who got one bank statement a month, months behind digital activity. Low-income families with no buffer for overdraft fees, one fraudulent charge away from debt spiral. This wasn't negligence. The targeting was precise enough to look like market research. The fraud had layers. On slow days, when a branch manager was screaming about missed quotas, something magic happened. Bankers would suddenly process old applications from their drawers applications submitted days or weeks earlier, held back for emergencies. They'd enter dozens of old customer interactions into the system, backdated, making it look like new business was happening in real time. It was like pulling pre-made meals from a freezer when the dinner rush hits. The applications were real. Customers had actually signed them, but the timing was fake. The business was being redistributed across time to smooth out dips in activity and hide the truth. On a given day, with honest sales, they'd sold nothing. Then came the money moving. Here's how the simulated funding loop worked. A banker opens a savings account for a customer. The account requires a minimum deposit to activate. So the banker suggests, why don't I move $25 from your checking account to jumpstart this savings account? The customer agrees. A legitimate transfer. But then the banker moves the money back. 25 live checking. $25 enters checking. The account is technically active, but the customer has the same amount of money. The fraud is invisible, except Wells Fargo charges a monthly maintenance fee on that savings account, $5, and a low balance fee, $10, and transfer fees, $2.20 each, for an account the customer didn't want and forgot about. Over 1 year, that fake account generates $20 in fees from a customer who deposited $0 of their own money. Multiply that by 3.5 million accounts. Multiply it across 5 years. Wells Fargo extracted $1.5 million in unauthorized fees from customers who had no idea those accounts existed. And that's just the direct theft. The indirect damage is invisible. Damaged credit scores from accounts they didn't authorize. Overdraft fees triggered by accounts they didn't know to monitor. The psychological weight of discovering fraud in their own name. On September 8, 2016 at 8 a.m., the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau held a press conference. The findings, 2 million unauthorized accounts. The fine, $185 million. The firings, 5,300 employees. The room went silent. Journalists frantically checked the numbers. 2 million accounts. That's the population of New Mexico. That's a phantom state of banking records. Wells Fargo's stock dipped but didn't crash. Analysts reassured investors, this is priced in, this is contained, it's a compliance issue, not a solvency issue. Except the number was wrong. The 2 million figure was what the CFPB could prove with evidence they'd collected. But investigators' models suggested the actual number was far higher. The bank had been operating this system for 5 years. The machine had been building. Within months, the true figure emerged, 3.5 million. That's not a compliance problem. That's an infrastructure problem. That means the entire cross-selling apparatus was built on fraud. The quarterly earnings reports were built on fraud. The CEO bonuses were built on fraud. Everything was rotten from the foundation. On September 20, 2016, John Stumpf, CEO of Wells Fargo, sat alone at a witness table in the Senate Banking Committee. His hand was heavily bandaged. He claimed he injured it playing with his grandchildren. Senator Elizabeth Warren leaned into the microphone. Her voice was controlled fury. You squeezed your employees to the breaking point so they would cheat customers to meet those numbers. You paid yourself millions while this happened. You didn't discover the fraud. The newspaper discovered it. And when you found out, you fired 5,300 employees instead of pausing and fixing the system. You should be fired, and you should be held accountable. Stumpf shifted. His hand trembled. Senator, I take full responsibility. Warren interrupted. No, you don't. If you took full responsibility, you'd resign. Within 23 days, Stumpf resigned. The board severed his golden parachute partially, but he left with $130 million in compensation. The message was clear. Destroy a nation of accounts, harm millions of people, claim ignorance, resign quietly, and walk away with 9 figures. Carrie Tolstead, the head of community banking who architected the 8 is Great strategy, retired in 2015. She forfeited $69 million in compensation. Still walked away with hundreds of millions in total compensation. 3 other executives were fired. 1 pleaded guilty. The CEO didn't face criminal charges. The company eventually settled all claims for $3 billion, the largest fine in banking history at the time. But that fine came from the company itself. The shareholders paid it. The customers who were defrauded got a settlement averaging $25 per person. The employees who were coerced into committing fraud? Most received nothing. Some were rehired with apologies. Most found other jobs, scarred by the experience. The system protected itself. The top executives kept their wealth. The workers kept their trauma. This isn't a story about one bad bank. It's a story about what happens when you design a system with impossible quotas and perfect monitoring. When you eliminate the gap between what's asked and what's possible, people don't work harder, they lie. And when you build an organization where lying is more profitable than being honest, where a fake account generates the same commission as a real one, the fraud isn't an accident. It's the feature, not the bug. After Wells Fargo, regulators changed rules. Banks now have stricter oversight. But the same pressure cooker culture exists in insurance companies, telecom providers, car dealerships. Anywhere you set impossible targets and measure people's value by hitting them, the machine is still running, just in different places. No headings, not short popographs like that.